Hey everyone, this is Ellie Mae with Silhouette Secrets Plus, and today I'm going to play around with the Dura-Bright white using some alcohol inks to create some background patterns that could be used for things like cards, bookmarks. The idea is to give you inspiration on things that you could use for your projects. So it is not limited to the exact projects that I am going to create and show you. A few basic supplies that you'll need are the Dura-Bright white. I have a pad here, so I'm just going to take one sheet of this out of this pad. So I'm going to just start with this sheet here, and don't worry about the edges, we can just trim those off. I'm going to be using cardstock for my card base, and then I have my surface protected with a silicone mat. Alcohol inks from my stash. I'm going to use a blower, but if you don't have one of these, you could also use a straw with your own wind power. This is going to be much easier on me to handle. If you're making things like bookmarks, you would want some sort of hole punch that is going to go through this plastic. And then just some basic tools, scissors on hand. I have a paper trimmer to cut up the cardstock for the card base. And then I'm going to be using just some double-sided sticky tape that I had in my stash to secure this background to the card front. So I'll share basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to create my palette on the entire surface of this Dura-Bright film. And then we can pick and choose where we want to cut it up. You could cut it up into multiple projects. You could save it for future use as well. You could also grab some gear if you want. Alcohol inks can stain your hands, so use some gloves when you're doing that if you don't want to have multicolored hands for a while afterwards. And then I just have some paper towels and some wet wipes on hand, as well as any other embellishments that you want to make with your card or your bookmark. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. I'm just going to flip this page over here. You can use either side of this, it looks like. And then you want to use colors that are going to complement and go well with each other. What you do not want to get is mixing mud, which I am probably the best at mixing mud colors. So we're just going to have some play around with this. So I'm going to add a few drops of inks around this page. And then you can see how it is just spreading. We can always add more. You can't take away though. So that's going to be the biggest thing here. You can also use a heat gun. This is heat resistant. Oh, look, I'm going to make mud. I'm going to try to keep that away from the purples, purplish pink. I'm not sure what color I grabbed there or what it's called. So I'm just going to add a few drops in there. Once it spreads out, that's a really nice shade of green. Let's add some blue in here. Mine looks like it leaked a little bit in my container. So we'll add some of this in, mix it into together. And I can already start to see it drying on the page. But if you needed to, you can, I'm just gonna do this and see how it goes. But when you get it on there, we can also take this and blow it around a little bit. It's neat how it splattered in there. I also have some rings going on that are lighter. So you can see that you're going to get all kinds of different techniques here. Try not to touch your ink. You will have to work quickly depending on your room. So a lot of it can be depending on your workspace. It must be very warm in my workspace here today so that the ink is drying very quickly. So let's see how this does. And sometimes I guess you might be looking to make the color of mud. You just don't want it to be all over your project. Every one of these could be a little bit different. You could try making patterns and designs in it as well. You could even, let's add some in the center here. See what happens. So I'm going to stop there and then just kind of blow this around. So I'm going to continue to fill this page, and then once it's dry, I will come back for the next part of the process. Now I've sped this process up quite a bit. Just continue to add inks as you desire and see what happens. I had so much fun playing around with this design, and I almost didn't want to stop. I was trying to fill up all of the white space. You can leave white space if you want, completely up to you. Just see what happens. I was having a lot of fun watching all of these inks just move around on the page. Once you are finished adding inks, make sure to let it dry thoroughly before you move on to the next step. While it was drying, I went into the Silhouette Studio software and created some designs that I will work with and use for my finished projects. And then I had the Silhouette Cameo 5, cut those out of Oracal 651 adhesive vinyl. This is going to be able to easily add an embellishment, but you can add anything to your projects with this and make them unique. Once the machine was done cutting the design out, I then just weeded the design. I had plenty of time while I was waiting for it to dry, and you just want to go slow with weeding, not as super fast as you see me doing on the screen. And then I'm going to take some transfer tape and then transfer this onto my projects. While this was finishing drying, it actually still looks kind of wet, but I've tested it and it's not. It's just the way the inks are and how they're showing. So I've just done some finger tests and it seems pretty dry. So we're going to go ahead with the process. But while it was drying, I did cut, which I have shared, the pieces for my card. Now you could do anything on top of this. So whatever supplies you have in your stash. I, of course, have cutting machines. So I cut some vinyl, adhesive vinyl in white. I'm going to move this out of the way for just a second. I'm going to make my own card base. So I'm going to take a sheet of 8.5 by 11 cardstock. I am going to, on the 11-inch side, I'm going to cut it down to 5.5 inches. And then I'm just going to quickly use my paper trimmer also to score this. So I'm going to score this. This is a card size for in the US at 4 1/4. And then I'll score this other one. Now with these alcohol inks, I am going to cover them with a little bit of a protectant so that it does not get scratched. You can choose what you want to do with those if you want to protect it or not, but it can be very helpful. The first thing I'm going to do though is I'm going to fold these card bases in half and then just use my tool to, so I just like to make my own card bases very quickly. You can do this in advance, but I wanted to show how I made it as well. And then this is what is going to be the base for adding. I'm going to add the alcohol ink background on top of that. So our card bases are ready, but I am going to use a covering. So one, I'm going to use the laminating film by Grafix. This is able to preserve your documents. It is acid free and there's no messy glue. So I'm going to use this one on top of the bookmark shape. And then I also have some holographic overlays. Now these are transparent overlays. I just grabbed this in my stash. This one has butterflies, but you can find all kinds of different things. So I'm going to grab this. I'm going to use this for on top of the card base. Will give it a little bit different look. So we can do both of those. But what I'm going to do first is I'm going to pull in this and we can go ahead and we can cut it down. So we have this full sheet. You can cut it up into all kinds of different pieces and use it for different projects. So decide which areas you would like to use for your card, and then you can start with deciding which ones you want for your different pieces. So I think I'm going to start here. If I cut this at 5.5, and it'll of course depend on what size card you are using. And I'm just using my paper trimmer to do that. You do want to make sure it's dry though, otherwise you could leave fingerprints or get ink on your paper trimmer. And then I'm going to cut this down to 4 1/4, and I might cut this white space off here, so I might give myself a little bit more room. 4.5. Completely up to you. And there. So I'll just turn this around, cut it, and white space isn't bad, just depends. Now, I went with the white adhesive vinyl that I cut with my Cameo, Silhouette Cameo, simply because my background turned out really dark. So of course it'll depend on your background. And then you could save these pieces as well and use them as embellishments on something. So don't throw them away. We'll just set those aside, save your scraps. So here I have 2 card bases, and then I'm going to cut out a, let's do over here on this side, or let's do this direction. I'm going to do a 2-inch and this is a total of 9 inches, so I can get 1 5-inch. I cut it a little bit longer, cut that white end off. Five inches. There we go. And so I have a bookmark piece here. And then I'm going to do the same thing with the laminate and the holographic. I'll cut this holographic first. So I will include those measurements as well in the description below. So my bookmark itself is just 2 inches. I'm actually going to cut it a little bit larger, and then I can trim with my scissors on the edges of it. Just because I know I got a piece of holographic stuck here. Hang on. Always when you're on video. And my bookmark was 5, so I'm just going to cut it a little bit longer, give myself some extra space. And then the Grafix laminating film. This is a great protectant. Now, if you know somebody's going to throw your card away, you might not want to do this, but if you know someone who saves your cards or yourself, you could also make home decor out of it. So like a picture frame, you could put this, frame it in a picture. That would be really cool to frame one of these. Maybe I'll do that. I'll cover this with, we'll do one of laminate and one with the holographic butterflies on it. And then mix things up as we go. Let's see, this one is the 4.5. Now I've already cut it down to a card size. Let me see what this one I have here is. It's 4.5. Okay. So if you did this in a frame, it would be, you could do a black outline on it. Maybe I'll do that. And I'll show a finished photo at the end of the video. So here I have 4.25. I'm going to cut it just a little bit bigger. And 5.5. So there's one there. And then grab my holographic overlay. And I'm going to cut it to 4.25. And adding an overlay for protection just takes a little bit of practice. As you saw with the alcohol inks, everyone's going to turn out different. Did I do it absolutely perfect? Probably not. But I think they turned out pretty cool looking. And I think it's going to look, even though it's kind of dark, even some of these areas, I was having a lot of fun playing with it. So I think it's going to be great, especially with a white contrast on top of it. So, and the adhesive vinyl is going to stick very, very well to it. Now, probably the hardest part of a laminate overlay is actually getting it off the backing. So something that can help, I use my fingernail, and then I'm just going to roll this back, and I'm going to apply it on top as straight as possible, be able to trim the edges, but as smooth as possible. And then I'm going to take a little squeegee here. And this is the Grafix. And what you see currently at the present moment is it kind of looks, I don't know, here, maybe you can see it in the video. It kind of has a texture to it, which can be good too. that will smooth out as the laminate has time to kind of seal and adhere to that. It's going to look smooth on it. So there is the laminate part. Here is my holographic. It's going to be thinner. It's just, but I thought it would give it a neat look here. You can do whatever you like with this. This is just to give you some ideas. Again, the hardest part is getting the backing off. Think about what's in your stash. Grab some of the Dura-Bright and just start playing with it. Create many different, or several, while one's drying, start another. I think it was just so fun to watch all of the ink kind of spread and move out. So you could do all kinds of different color combinations, and we'll see if the camera will pick this up. And then I'm just going to trim the edges on that. So this is our bookmark, and here is another card. And then I'll just take a pair of scissors here and cut off any of this excess. But I'd rather have some excess than miss. And there you have a card background, or you could put it in a frame. And I only cut one decal for, I'm realizing that now. I'll have to cut another decal for the front. And I'll show the finished photo of that once we get all done. So trimmed off all those edges. And I kind of like, I have to say, I think this one here with the Grafix laminate, I think that one's my favorite. I did not think that would be. I thought I would love the holographic. I've been playing with the holographic. That's why it was handy for me to grab when I went to record. But I like this one because of the colors, I think. So I think what I might do, this one I'm going to save. And I think it'll work great. It even has the edges here, the rough edge from the end of the paper pack. I'm going to save this one, and I'm going to use that one for a, I'll put it in a frame and show that photo here. So for this one, this bookmark here, I can go ahead and take my hole punch and just punch a hole at the top. Get it through both those layers of the laminate. There we go. And then here's my card. So I have my bookmark, extra pieces to save along with my little scraps. And I'm going to take my double-sided tape. This one has the edge on it too. It'll be just fine. Just add a couple pieces to it. Probably didn't need the double-sided tape. It's you could use any other adhesive. The plastic isn't too thick. But you can see that it does leak onto the back side. So you do want to protect your workspace with that. So I'm going to grab my card base, place that on top, smooth it down. And here's a trick. When I make my own card bases, sometimes they're just a little bit off. I just trim this off. Nobody's going to know. Oh, except now it's out on YouTube, so somebody will know. Sometimes your paper, when I trim it and make the measurements for the card bases, it can be just a little bit off, or I folded it wrong. But there is my front card base. Ugh, that's really, I do like that. Now this holographic, it's so weird with the butterflies. And then I'm going to get some transfer tape for this adhesive vinyl. So this is just the transfer tape that I use. I do reuse this, so, and I put a different backing on it. It's not really Oracal. This is actually AT65 transfer tape that I use, but I reuse it. So I'll just cut a piece down. I'll reuse it till it's no longer sticky. So always save your scraps, reuse what you can, and create all kinds of different projects. So I'm just going to pick this up. If you had a lighter background, you could also stamp. So in this case, since I covered it with the laminate, you could stamp directly on top of the alcohol ink before you apply the laminate, or you could stamp on top of the laminate with like a StazOn ink. So now I'm just going to, this is called transfer tape, and it does exactly what its name says it transfers your adhesive vinyl decal to whatever object you are placing it on. So once it's weeded, I'm just carefully removing the backing, going slow so that it'll release to the transfer tape. And then I can go ahead. Now this is going to suck down because it is a plastic surface for the holographic or the laminate, so it will static cling to it. So you want to be prepared and commit. Oh, this is going to look awesome. Okay, commit, be ready to go, and have that straight. Otherwise, it'll just suck it right down. And then remove that. Adhesive vinyl will stick great to the laminate, or it'll stick to the Durafilm as well, but I wasn't sure if the transfer tape would pull any of the color up. So that's why I did protect it and put a protective cover over top of it. I think it gives it a very unique look. It's pretty cool. So there is with the holographic butterflies. We'll remove those. And this is for our bookmark. I'll just grab the same piece. Again, I said I reuse it. It's a little big, but that's okay. I'm just going to smooth that down over top of it. And keep in mind, I'm going faster than you probably should, especially since I'm on video. It's not the first time I've worked with adhesive vinyl or transfer tape. Now the alcohol inks and the Dura-Bright, I am new at that. I can't say I have a lot of practice with it, and every single time I do it, it's different. So, but I want you to know that you can do it too. So while it's a little nerve-wracking to get on camera and show you a technique that I am not, have not used a whole lot, it also shows you that you are an artist. You can do this too. All of it. Again, it is very static clingy. So what I think I might do on this one, I'm going to show you another trick. Not that I had planned to show you guys, but here's a trick. We'll try it. Well, hopefully this will work. I'm going to cover it back with the backing. Cover that top portion. Then I'm going to decide where I want this. Try to get it somewhat straight. Then I can stick this part down. Cross my fingers, it worked. Peel that back, remove the backing, and then I can push this down. Then I'll add a piece of ribbon, and I have a bookmark there. And then I'm going to do the same thing. I like this white on here, but I'm going to go cut another piece and add this into a frame. Since I cut this as a card base to start off with, because I changed my mind in the middle of the video, I am actually going to cut out a black cardstock frame, and then I will place this in the middle, and let's take a look at the finished photo. Sometimes it's hard to capture the colors in the final photos, so I took a quick video here showing an up-close look at the finished projects. So there's a look at the card and then the bookmark with the holographic overlay on top of that, and it just turned out great with this Dura-Bright white. And then I just added a yarn tassel I made. This is the project that took on a life of its own through the recording. I ended up cutting a white cardstock border and then adding an easel to the background, but you can see that laminate sealed over time, smoothed out, made those colors pop, and it is protected and can be displayed on my desk in my studio. Sometimes you just have to go where the art takes you. Let us know in the comments below if you have used the Dura-Bright white with the alcohol inks to create fun backgrounds, or if you will be in the future. Thanks for joining us and have a great day.